Welcome to The Wonder, exploring perspectives, rituals, and observances of modern, naturalistic, earth revering, pagan religious paths. Here are your hosts, Yucca and Mark.
Welcome back to The Wonder, Science-Based Paganism. I'm your host, Mark,
And I'm Yucca.
and it's that time again. We're going to talk about the winter solstice and all the different things we call it, and what the themes of the season are, and how we celebrate it, and all that good kind of stuff. So happy solstice to everyone.
That's right. Happy solstice. We're here already.
End of 2023 already. Hard to believe.
Yep. So, and the new
Does that mean
year's,
we're going into season 5?
we're going into season 5. That's right.
Whoa.
Yeah. On the one hand, it feels like forever. It feels like it's been a decade. On the other hand, I can't believe it. It's like, didn't we
Yeah,
just start doing this last year?
yeah,
Right?
something like, yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the solstice, and we'll link to some of our previous episodes of the solstice as well, because
Yeah.
since we're going into season 5, right? We've done this particular one, several years before, and that's one of the lovely things about the Wheel of the Year. It keeps turning, and we keep coming back to it, and
Right.
again and again and again, but every year it's a little different.
Mm-hmm.
So,
So it's a spiral rather than a circle.
yeah, it's like those, you can look up animations of the solar system but from the instead of having the sun stationary, having the sun moving through the galaxy, because it is moving.
Mm-hmm.
It just depends on what you're using as your frame of reference, but the planets all going along for the ride as well. We're orbiting the sun and moving with the sun as it goes through the galaxy. So it reminds me of that spiral that we do.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
So, but let's start with themes. So, Mark, what do you call this holiday?
Well, that is a bit of a moving target. For many, many years, I've called it Yule.
Mm-hmm.
I called it Yule in my book,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm moving off that into midwinter,
Mm-hmm.
for a couple of reasons. One of which is that Yule is still a cultural reference.
Mm-hmm.
It's a Scandinavian word that references a winter solstice kind of holiday that happened around this time of year in those cultures.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been very careful not to be drawing from any cultures in my practice.
Mm-hmm.
So midwinter, it's the corollary to midsummer at the summer solstice. And so that just seems like it feels pretty appropriate to me.
Nice. Okay.
How about you?
Usually solstice, just the winter solstice or solstice, sometimes first winter. I don't use midwinter because it's not midwinter for us.
Mm-hmm.
It certainly isn't the start of winter the way it's shown on like the calendar in terms of the astronomical seasons,
Mm-hmm.
but it's been winter for a month at this point. But we will not be into midwinter until midwinter is more, January, end of January for us, where we'll really be in the middle of winter.
Sure.
So, yeah, usually solstice. I've never really connected with the name Yule. I think it's pretty. It's on cards that people send,
Mm-hmm.
but I've never had that connection with it. I don't know. It also, Yule to me still has more of a Christmas
Yes.
association. Like it's still very
Yes.
Christmas. And even though Christmas is happening around the same time, for me, the solstice and Christmas are two very separate things.
Yeah, I guess in my case, because I've abandoned Christmas.
Hmm.
So I have a lot of people around me, of course, who are celebrating it at work and so forth. But I just adopted solstice celebration, and that's what I do now. So I have a tree for that rather than for Christmas, for
Hmm.
example. We were just putting lights on it and discovering that the new lights, there aren't quite enough of them. So now we desperately have to find some more and get them delivered immediately. So that'll be fun. They're they're LEDs
Mm-hmm.
that have a phone app where you can adjust the lights and the patterns, and Renee really is excited about this.
Okay, nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, it's lovely.
Yeah. Yeah, I haven't seen it at night yet, but it'll be pretty, I'm sure.
Hmm.
Oh, yeah, I'm moving away from Yule. Yule seemed like kind of a harmless name to use when I was writing my book, as opposed to like the Celtic names and stuff like that that feels appropriative to me and not really relevant to who I am and where I live and all that kind of stuff.
But in retrospect, it's seeming a little appropriate to you right now.
Well, I don't believe you can appropriate from a dead culture, so I'm not so worried about appropriating Scandinavian stuff from a Norse worshiping tradition that didn't exist for 1,000 years or so after Christianization.
Hmm. Well, I
But
mean, there's still a lot, depending on where, like in Iceland, and there's still some that is around today, but
oh,
not,
absolutely,
yeah, not
absolutely.
necessarily in the same maybe strength that it was or prominence, but there's still aspects of that around.
Well, and there's a resurgence.
Hmm.
I mean, I think that if we had looked at things in 1950, we probably would have seen a few folk practices, but not really anything that was as organized as, a religious practice, for example. But I don't know enough about it to say for certain one way or another. In
Hmm.
any case, it's safer to simply abandon that name and move with one that's more generic and English.
Hmm.
But, when I first came into paganism, everybody called it Yule, and that was okay, and
That was
that's
just what
what
you
we
were
did.
around, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
Um, so whatever you call the winter solstice, and you may call it midsummer if you live in Argentina or Brazil. Um, Whatever you call it, we're here to talk about celebrating it.
Hmm.
And why don't we talk some about some of the themes that come up at this time of year? There's so much iconography to this season, with the trees and the Santa Clauses and the reindeer and the on and on and on and on.
I wish that everybody could see the backgrounds that we both came in with today because there's this huge difference. So, Mark, you've got this scene with the pine. I don't know what trees those are back there, but your conifers with the snow on it, and this little night scene and this little house, and it's these dark, blues and grays. And then my background, and this was not planned, is the sun, and it's a an up close of the bright sun with all the convection cells and
And
loops
prominences
and prominence
bursting
and
off the
loops coming
limb.
off of it. Yeah, and I think that reflects a big theme for this time of year is the relationship between the light and the dark and the sun and the night and all of that.
Ooh, nice segue. That was great. Yeah. Yes. The whole question of how we relate to darkness is very much up at this time of year because there sure is a lot of it in the northern hemisphere.
Hmm.
And boy, the days are short now and they're going to get even shorter.
At my
So,
latitude, we get about 14 and a half, almost 15 hours of night at
wow.
solstice.
Wow.
And for folks who
Yeah.
live farther north, it's even more extreme.
Yeah, I think we get close to 16 hours.
Yeah.
No,
No, you
16
can't,
and
they're
a
not
half.
that much, but yeah.
Yeah, 16 and a half hours. 15 and a half hours.
Hmm.
Okay, third time's the charm. Um, yeah, so waking up in the dark, finishing work in the dark.
Hmm.
I I feel a lot of empathy for people who have commutes during that time because
Hmm.
of course I've done that for many years, I work at home, so that's a relief. And the whole piece about how we fear the dark and metaphorically how we fear the darkness in ourselves,
Hmm.
the the not so nice stuff, uh the submerged stuff that we've pushed down.
Hmm.
this is a time of year that's often associated with dreaming and with ghosts.
Mm-hmm.
And I see that as useful fodder for contemplation. Um, you know, trying to get more of a handle on, well, what am I pushing down? What am I ignoring? What am I afraid of in myself that I'm repressing?
Mm-hmm.
And maybe it's stuff that needs repressing. That's okay. But I'd still like to be aware of it and, be making conscious choices around all of that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a part of how I come to this season when it relates to light and dark. How about you, Yucca?
Yeah, I mean the dark um of this going in is a big theme for me. The the peaceful, restful night in
Mm-hmm.
which you have the deep self-reflection, and there's a stillness about it this time. Although, yes, we have so much happening in the holidays, like we were talking about last week, but this solstice for me is a really, really contemplative, quiet, inward experience
Mm-hmm.
in a lot of ways. And it really is. I mean, I just keep wanting to say going back to this going in. I really picture like going deep into a cave, down deep into the earth slash me, to really kind of understand and reflect and see what quiet seeds you have waiting, sleeping there, and what will become. But it's not, things haven't woken up yet. It's what
Mm-hmm.
what is going to be waking up. What have we been planting? What's there? Um, and there's something much more vulnerable, much more visceral in the dark, away from the light.
Mm. Yeah, I think that's very well said. That kind of journeying piece about going down into the dark,
Mm-hmm.
which is so often a theme of guided meditations and solo journeying inward work.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good time for doing that stuff. Uh,
Yeah.
the body's circadian rhythms are really oriented towards sleep,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a good time for dreaming. And I when I think about this in the context of the life cycle
Mm-hmm.
and the context of a human life, it's a time for dreaming new stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, dreaming new life, dreaming new ideas, just starting to get those first glimmerings of what might be what you plant next year and work
Mm-hmm.
to achieve. Way
Yeah.
too soon to get firm on those plans.
Yeah.
It's all just
You
blue
can't be
sky
doing anything
and
with the soil yet. It's
no,
it's
no,
un whether there actually is snow or not. It's sleeping under that snow right now.
right, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's not a time. I mean, one of the things that I do appreciate about this holiday in the overculture, and there aren't very many things that I appreciate, but one of them is that for a week or so, the world seems to hold its breath, at
Mm-hmm.
least for Christmas Eve and Christmas. There are
Mm-hmm.
those 2 days when commerce mostly finally stops and people are at home with their families, and there's a silence in the
Mm-hmm.
world that I really appreciate. And that seems to persist to some degree through to New Year's.
Mm-hmm.
Most people are not going to work. And I would imagine that the whole
School's out for
school is
kids.
out,
Yeah.
all that sort of stuff. So there's that withdrawal into the darkness that I really appreciate.
Mm-hmm. The other theme for me is the forests. So I see the Wheel of the Year, the different stations at it or seasons, often celebrating different types of ecosystems or components that are really connected to how we experience the world as humans and who we're connected with. And this half of the year is the forests.
Hmm.
The there's association with the forest there, particularly the pine. Yeah.
Forest.
Whereas on the other side, we've got the grasslands. In the
Wow.
summer and the autumn, there's the grasslands, but now it's the forests and the forest creatures and we'll get more into some of the bovines and ungulates and things later, but there's something very for me kind of ancient and primal about that too, that kind
Hmm.
of pulls back to different some of my different roots in terms of my ancestry and that kind of connection with the forest.
Sure.
um, and for a lot of people it's also a celebration of the sun and of
Hmm.
stars and our sun as a star as well.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah. I like that historically the forest was a scary place to go into for
Hmm.
one reason, because it was dark,
Hmm.
right? So, you built your little island of civilization in your farmstead or whatever it was, but out beyond those fences, there was more uncertainty. And so going into the woods, you never knew what you were going to encounter. And there's more of that mystery, that going into the
Hmm.
darkness.
But it's also necessary.
Well, yes.
That's also where the that's where you would go to hunt. That's where you'd go
Yeah.
to gather your medicine. That's where you'd go for that. There's You can't just stay out of it. You've got to go back in and be part of
Hmm.
that whole system.
Yep. Which is very much like human psychology.
Hmm.
There are layers and layers and layers of things. There are things that you may think you're over, and you may not be over them.
Hmm.
There are things that have been profound enough in your life that you may never be over them. You have to revisit them over and over again. I
Hmm.
know I have quite a number of things like that. So I really like at this time of year to kind of take a step back, reflect, imagine, do all that sort of soft path under the surface kind of work.
Hmm.
Um, it just seems like an appropriate time when it's so dark and it's cozy inside and feels relatively safe to contend with some of that stuff.
Yeah, I really like the coziness of just really getting into the coziness of this time of year. We, I use a diffuser with different
Mhm.
oils in the house, and I don't buy into like the, you know, magical properties of, this particular oil does this or that. I'm like, I like the smell of it. So I use it in the house and I change those out throughout the seasons. And right now, we're doing a lot of those very kind of spicy, yummy cedars and cinnamons and all of that. Just very
Mhm.
cozy stuff this time of year with the big blankets and the cuddling with the kitty cat and all that, the warm drink and all that stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, I really like to lean into that stuff too. I mean, I suppose it really should be thematic for the next 2.5 months, something like that, to
Oh, we'll,
create that cozy time.
yep, we'll lean into that a lot. Yeah, and when we talk about the next holiday, we'll get into that more too. But um
And
yeah,
even before that, we'll talk about slog.
slog, yes. So, and I think we said we were gonna at some point come back to doing a darkness episode,
We
probably
did.
sometime in January, something like that,
Yeah.
when we're really in the kind of the thick of it.
The deep
Um,
cold. Yeah.
yeah. Now there's some parts of the holiday too that you were talking about, like doing a tree or things like that. What's that like for you?
Oh boy. I have so many observances at this time of year, so many traditions that I do other than just redecorating my focus. We do a tree. We have collected a set of ornaments over the years that are very thematic, a lot of wildlife, some antique glass ornaments from the 40s, 50s, and 60s that, remind me of childhood. Some of the few happy memories that I have of childhood are evoked by the scent of that tree and by, these old ornaments. And we don't really buy presents for one another because we have too much stuff as it is. But what we do is put cozy, appealing, charming things under the tree to sort of celebrate our abundance and so forth. We just got a bunch of internet. There's a store called Cost Plus here. I don't know if it exists
Hmm.
elsewhere.
Yeah, we've got
Um,
that here.
it's an import store, and so we got German cookies and English figgy pudding and a bunch of different things like that for the holiday, and
Mm.
have those sitting under the tree right now. We do a Yule log ritual on the solstice night where we decorate. Actually, what I do is I take the lower half of the trunk of last year's Yule tree,
Mm.
which I sawed off and
Hmm.
kept. And of course, now it's dry.
Right.
So, what I do is I use some kind of natural fiber twine, like sisal or hemp or something like that, to tie that to a larger log
Hmm.
because, Christmas tree trunks generally are
Not very thick.
4
Yeah.
inches in diameter at max. And then we decorate that with holly and pyracantha berries and fresh boughs from this year's Yule tree. And we put candles on it.
Hmm.
And then we tuck little notes into under the twine and in amongst the branches and stuff that are wishes for the coming year.
Hmm.
And when that's all done and we've done our booga booga ritual stuff over it, we take it out and we burn it in our fire pit outside.
Mm.
And it's a cool thing to do.
Hmm.
My ritual circle does a ritual every year where we turn off all the lights in the house of my circle brother and sister. We go outside, we get cold. We have a little cauldron with some fire burning in it in the middle of us, so we have a little bit of illumination. But we sing songs and really get ourselves into the whole mood. And then each of us takes a taper, lights it from the fire in the cauldron, and we go into the house again and light every candle in the house all throughout the house,
Oh, nice.
bringing the light back.
Mm.
And that's a ritual that I really enjoy as well.
Mm.
How about celebrations at your house?
Mm. Well, we don't have a tree. We've got at their grandmother's a Christmas tree. When we lived in the city, I did take I would take branches. Instead of taking a whole tree, I'd take branches and bring them into the house. And part of that was I just I'm not a city person. It was hard for me to be in the city. So I just wanted I just craved the connection with the land that and we weren't like smack in the middle of the city. We actually kind of on the a nicer part of town that did have a few trees and a yard and that sort of thing. But um so I would bring stuff in, but now we're out out in the country and it doesn't I don't miss it all in the same way because we're surrounded by it all the time. So I'm not,
Mm-hmm.
you know, feeling that thirst to bring stuff in as much. But we do have some lights. We have some like little solar LED Christmas lights that I think are meant to
Mm-hmm.
go out on your fence or something like that. But I just have the solar panel sitting in the window and it does it well enough. And it's a dark time of year, so it doesn't charge a lot, but it'll just go on as soon as the natural light fades and it runs for a few hours and we've gone to sleep at that point. So in terms of sort of the more traditional stuff, we do that. Um, and again, for us, the Christmas and solstice are two different times.
Right.
It's all related, and we've talked about how the history of why Christmas is on the day it is and the weird calendar switching stuff that happened and all of that. But when it's the solstices and equinoxes, I like to set an alarm for the actual moment because that is an astronomical moment that
Mhm.
happens, not just the day. And so this year, I think it's going to be 8:27 p.m. our time. So I've got an alarm set so that when it does happen, the alarm can go off and we can go woo and put our hands in the air. It's much better than when it happens at like 2 or 3 in the morning because I do wake the kids up for that. We go woo and then they go back to sleep. But this time, I think it's nice that it's going to be during the night when we're still awake,
Uh-huh.
but it's been dark for a few hours at that point, so that'll be lovely.
That sounds
Yeah.
great. A friend of mine is doing a party that he used to do before COVID. This is the first time since the arrival of COVID, which of course isn't over, but
Hmm.
we're doing parties again. So he's doing a winter solstice vigil, which is
Mm.
an all-night party that goes until dawn, and then you greet
Hmm.
the sun at they climb up to the top of the hill in San Francisco and greet the sun. I'm going to go, but I'm not going to stay all night
Hmm.
because the next morning I have to
It's a
be in
Wednesday, isn't it? Solstice is a
uh,
Wednesday night
I
this
thought it
year.
was Thursday.
Is it? I think it's the 21st this year for North America. It'll be the 22nd for Europe. But anyways, it's a
Yeah, the
weekday.
21st is the Thursday.
Oh, it is a Thursday. It's not Wednesday. Okay, I
Yeah.
just had the. Okay, great.
That's good because I took Thursday and Friday off, and if
Okay,
it was on
sorry.
Wednesday, I would feel kind of silly.
Yes, it is the 21st. I just had the days wrong in my head. All right. So you'll have
So
to, yeah.
that next morning, I have a part in a Unitarian Universalist solstice service. And
Mm.
so I'm not going to stay up all night, greet the sun, then jump in my car, drive 60 miles, and do that. That sounds like dangerous to me.
I don't know about you, but I can't do the whole stay up all night thing. I have not been able to do that in years. People do it for
Really?
New Year's. I'm like, nope, not doing it.
I
I'll
can, but
wake
I don't
up.
choose to very often.
If I need to be up at midnight, I'll go to sleep at 6 and I'll wake myself up at 11:30, but I'm not gonna stay up till
Ah,
midnight or 1. Yeah.
uh-huh.
Getting up
Well,
at
you're
dawn,
a
no problem.
mom, so sleep is really at a premium.
I like my sleep, yeah. But
Yeah.
even before I was a mom,
Uh-huh.
I do not do the staying up. I am not a good person to be around when I'm not rested.
Uh,
That thinking about all that self-reflection we do this time of
uh-huh.
year, yeah, I've learned that. Like, nope, need my sleep. So, but I think for people who that works for, I think that's lovely. I certainly remember being younger and feeling that like that kind of altered state of having stayed up all night. Is a
Yeah, more
yeah.
emotionally vulnerable and yeah. Well, this is a separate topic, but the fire circle rituals that I've been to many of, they go from typically 11 at night until dawn.
Hmm.
And there's the same kind of feeling, and you do them 3 nights in a row
Mm.
and catch some sleep during the day, but of course you don't get a full 8 hours. So you are really sleep deprived by the last night. And
Hmm.
everybody's just really tender and open, and it's beautiful to be around a ton of people who are like that. But what you don't want to do is operate heavy machinery after having that experience. It's not safe.
Right. Heavy machinery, including cars. Just a
That's
reminder.
that's what I was meaning is
Yeah.
yeah, cars. And I am 60 miles from San Francisco, and I don't want to have to drive on, being awake 24 hours
Mm. Yeah.
back up to Santa Rosa. So yeah, so I'm going to go to the party for a while, and then I'm going to come back. Uh, and it'll be great to see some friends down there, but it'll also be great to catch some solid Z's uh, on the morning before I have to do this other thing.
Mm.
We're having we're recording this on the 16th. Is that
Yes,
right?
Saturday the 16th.
Yeah,
Yep.
Saturday the 16th. And tomorrow, the Northern California Athiopagan Affinity Group is getting together for a Yule celebration.
Oh, yay.
Yeah, we've I'm driving down there and we're having a fire pit and sharing delicious, cozy making food. There's a good chance it may rain, so
Hmm.
I'm bringing stuff from mulled wine, and we can sit inside and listen to the rain and drink mulled wine, and
Ah,
it'll be
lovely.
great. Yeah.
Hmm.
Ah, so are there other things that you do at this time of year?
It's still kind of evolving, just as my kiddos are getting to an age where they can be part of creating those traditions.
Oh,
And we'll see what happens over the next few years, right?
right.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and it's wonderful to let yourself kind of be led by their interests in this as well.
Yeah,
Um, because you'll develop traditions that are just your families, and that's very cool.
right. Yeah. And who knows, maybe that'll go they'll remember that and do that with their families or something different, or just it's one of the lovely things about what we were talking about in the beginning about it, just that spiraling back around to it.
Right.
Each year there's something familiar but different, and over time that might change into something very different, but still have some of those same roots, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah. That's this sort of balancing act that happens in modern paganism, where on the one hand it's very DIY and you can create your own rituals and those can all be unique. On the other hand, there's something to be said about tradition, about having these things that you do every year at a particular time of year, just to acknowledge that it's that time of year and to create a particular feeling that you associate with that time of year. I really enjoy both. There have been times, well, like for example, my ritual circle, Dark Sun, does the same Hallows ritual every year.
mhm,
And I've talked about that before during those episodes. And there have been times when I've had like cool ideas for a Hallows ritual, and I would have loved to do it with them, but nope, we're doing the traditional thing.
mhm.
So I think there's both sides to that. The desire to be creative and the desire to create tradition.
Yeah, here we are.
Here we are once again at the darkest time of year in the northern hemisphere and the brightest in the southern hemisphere. So if you're enjoying summer, have a wonderful time. Go swimming, eat some ice cream, do all those things that one does in the summertime. For those of us in the northern hemisphere, we wish you a meaningful and joyous and warm and cozy solstice celebration and time of year. And we will be back next week.
Yep. See you next week.